Hello,
Hi.
how are you doing?
Oh, I've been better, to be honest. We
I'm
had
sorry.
some pretty nasty storms last night, so we have a tree branch just chilling on the roof of our house right now.
Oh, that sucks.
We've been waiting for the tree people to come out like all day, and they still have not come.
Naturally.
So I'm like,
Where are
well,
you at?
I'm in gosh, I almost said my old hometown, Sprague, Nebraska.
Okay. I was
Out.
born in Lincoln.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's like it's. I was born in Lincoln as well. It's outside of. It's like 30 minutes from town, so it's not too bad.
Okay. Yeah, I'm up in Minnesota now, and we are in such a drought. It's not even funny.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been lucky enough to have I was like, oh, I'm not complaining about the rain, but I am complaining about the massive tree limb that's laying on our house.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. So that was quite the adventure. So I do apologize if they do come out and they start working.
No,
Might get a little loud. I don't know what they're planning on doing. So
do what you got to do. I totally understand.
yeah. So I believe this is recording.
Yeah, it told me it was recording.
Okay. All right.
And I'll share my video, and I look like a crazy lady, so I'm just warning you now.
Hey, only people who are going to see this is us and Steve. So,
Oh, Steve. Yes.
but yes, I think we'll just I don't know how to I guess keep everything. So, I mean, I'll probably since I think I'm the administrator for this, I'll just take the video and submit it.
Okay.
And just I think we just have to add our names to it and
Okay.
that's
I
it.
appreciate you doing all this because I am so not tech savvy at all.
Oh, that's fine. I had to look at it again, and before I even started, I had to update my Zoom. Like, great, I'm the one who's gonna be late to the own schedule.
Yeah, huzzah for setting things up. That was not my jam.
Yeah.
I will organize things and I would have figured it out, but I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And the neighbor's like, I'll do it. I'm like, yes.
Like I was just telling her, I've been waiting all day for a tree service to come and get this giant tree limb off our house.
Boo.
So yeah, I've been like, yeah, I got time. I'll do it.
I was busy at work.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of said, I gotta figure this out first before I can come in. But
none of them help me towards my cases because they're all direct to cremation, but nonetheless.
Yeah.
Who are we waiting on?
Up here they are.
Hello. Hi. All right. So I don't know if everyone heard. I know you just joined, but I believe I have this recording. So I will save it, and then I will like upload it to YouTube or whatever he suggested, and then I'll just submit it to the in the assignment link. I'll add our names and all that, and I'll let you guys know when it's uploaded. If that's fine. I don't know how else to do it.
Is it just the four of us?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like I have a weird delay.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a weird delay. I think we'll just have to deal with it. I don't know how else to fix it. So I think if we just want to just start into it, I kind of just went off of the original line of how we had it, so the differences between delayed and intermediate, and then just went down the list from there. That'd be the easiest?
I think so. I think the whole point of this is just, I mean, honestly, most of Steve's stuff is so that you are openly talking about something and showing some kind of participatory, manner, and any kind of knowledge that you could potentially possess on the possibility. I don't think he's expecting that this is going to be, in true podcast fashion where it's, fantastically, edited and, looking nice and all that jazz. But I think there's just the 4 questions, and then there's the discussion on that organ and tissue donation advances. Okay. I think we just round robin this bad boy and just have an open discussion.
Yeah, I love that.
All right.
Maybe we should introduce each other as each other's guests.
Yes. I'd like to introduce my guests.
Let's see. We have to have this. We have 40 minutes. But we have to have between 25 to 30 minutes for the assignment.
Okay, I will start a timer and just give the countdowns. I can handle that. I'm good at that game.
You can do that. Yeah. I think the best way to do it is just go through. I mean, you can go through each one, and then whoever starts talking first, that's fine. We can just bounce off each other and add other stuff, and then we'll okay if we're ready to move on.
That'll work.
Cool beans. Does anybody want to start this shit off?
I think we can start because I think all of us being students, the conversation about differences between delayed and immediate aspiration and the advantages and disadvantages of each, man, that comes right out of our, discussion points. Yeah. And I think almost all embalmers have some kind of guidance one way or another. I guess I will share, the tidbits that I've gotten. I don't know if any of you have ever read anything that I've posted. I've lucked out that mine is a family-owned firm that I work in. Sue is one of the first female operators in the state of Minnesota that's owned, operated, and her husband is not a mortician. And then Erdna Heitner actually was the first woman to go through the University of Minnesota's class. So we're talking 3 generations ago. So it's been women-owned this entire time. Oh, wow. So she has a real heart and spirit for teaching. So it's her, and her husband is not a funeral director. He does pre-need and CFO type stuff. And then it's Brandon, her son, and then it's me. I'm the redheaded stepchild of the group, but I'm the friend. So I get to play. But in the teaching environment in which we find ourselves, because Brandon's an intern and because I'm a student, every case that we come up against, whether it's delayed, immediate, whatever we're going to do, is a conversation. And I think that that's something to be said of that, where there are people who most definitely get into the groove of things, and it's like, well, we always delay because it works better for us and we want to have better results. And then there's the group, you saw several of the posts that says, well, we always go immediate because, quite frankly, we're trade embalmers and time's money and we got to keep people moving, otherwise my tables are full. And I think we can discuss the merits on both sides of that. But, for me, giving any kind of difference between it, well, delayed means that you're going to have longer time for your chemical to set up because you're holding your tension, you're making sure that things stay where they are, you're giving your chemical time to do its job. It's got an advantage there. Disadvantage takes time. And if you have another case and you only have one table, you're moving people off tables, back on tables, things get forgotten, extra movement of the body, you can have frail tissue being torn. Is it really worth that if you need to move them? Aspiration, I hear a couple people talk about, the partial or, going up and just draining different parts and doing different, I guess I've done every single way. Whether I've done full aspiration, whether we've done immediate, whether we've waited. But I think for me, the guideposts of it is having a discussion ahead of time. What's it going to do? And I think for the most part, because we pre-inject with every case and give it that 15 minutes, and then I do a lot of my terminal disinfection, I almost always have a 30-minute delay just naturally because I'm putting stuff away, I'm cleaning things up, I'm doing that. So we get that natural additional time for the chemical to set and firm. So I guess I'm of the school of thought that I do it a little bit, but an actual like delayed aspiration, there better be something really wrong, and that chemical maybe needs to sit there a really long time if I'm going to let it sit for 24 hours. Thoughts on anybody else's?
I've nenever done a delayed aspiration. I think the only reason you would have to do, sorry, I'm getting off. Is a decomp case, because you want to get that in there. But we always sort of the sheer number of cases we get, thanks to mail. I can see usefulness in both of it, but I've just never done it.
Yeah, with home I'm associated with, we pretty much is just immediate. It's family owned, but it's a big family owned. There's like 3 locations we have. So it's like we do trades and all that jazz pretty much weekly. So it's just we don't have that time to delay it and wait the 8 to 12 hours delayed when we can just do immediate and try to prepare to brain. Anyway, but basically to make sure that they are preserved completely. So we use a lot of chemicals. Well, at least the embalmer I'm with, we use a lot of chemicals. So we don't really see a lot of the disadvantages that come along with delayed embalming. And really the only delay, the one that disadvantage that comes that I could think of is just not waiting and the reduced swelling that can come with like delayed aspiration. But that's just my personal story.
Sorry to throw us off topic for a second, but just to help with the delay, could we like mute our mics like while one of us is talking, and then it like if you want to chime in, yeah, okay, there. I think that's fixed it. Did that fix it for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I think that was kind of like messing with our brains as we were talking, and I hope this helps. But so I also come from a small family funeral home. Yeah. And we have basically only done immediate aspirations. I don't think I've ever done a delayed aspiration in my time being there. And our main reasoning behind that is we actually come from a very conservative community where almost 70% of the cases that we do, they go out the next day. And so like most of the time we don't have time for that like 24 hours or however long most delayed aspirations would be. So our main thing is, which is, obviously the main difference between immediate and delayed, but we just can't let someone sit and then aspirate that day and then also send them out. Like it just feels like it'd be way too much. So that's our main thing. But yeah, I think we all kind of covered like a lot of the main advantages and disadvantages of both.
So I think the consensus is that a lot of it's going to depend on the funeral home you work in, the volume in which you're participating in, whether or not you're a ship out, whether or not like Brandy and I, we live really close to Rochester and they like to, send you cases all the time, and I mean, what you're dealing with. So I think we all kind of have a thought on that. I feel like the next one, I hate to use the word, is a little more fun, but what's your favorite suture and why? So reverse order, you're back up, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm still laughing. So again, just with coming from a family practice, I mean, I learned everything I have from my dad. And we've only done 2 sutures in everything that I've been helping him with. Baseball suture, which is known to be probably the most common. And then he also taught me what he calls a purse string suture, I think. And I can't remember if we talked about that in class. But baseball suture, I mean, we know is common for incision sites, but we use the purse string suture for if the decedent has wounds that are pretty open, not very like linear, you know, more circular. But yeah, those are my two, I guess, favorite. I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but
I guess for like mine, I would say it's the like continuous suture. And then yeah, using the baseball stitch as well. That's pretty much what I've practiced with. I'm still getting used to it, trying to hold everything and trying to maneuver it. And it was, yeah, I had to do a first, or at least my first radial. And I was just like, how am I going to do this? And I was just like, well, I guess we're just going to have a grand old time and use some of my own body parts to to maneuver this. So that was quite the day. I felt like, but I feel with, like, at least for me, I feel like the continuous suturing with the baseball stitch, I feel like you have like more control with it. I mean, you're able to like hold it and, you know, tighten up the ligature and see where you're at and pull it nice and tight so you don't see the ligature anymore. Because at least for mine, at least from my experience, that's what I've told. They don't want to see it, especially if it's a supraclavicular. They don't like to see that. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would say. That's kind of, and then supraclavicular is probably at least my favorite spot, because I feel like it's right there. You don't have to maneuver anything special just to get to it. So it's another favorite spot.
So I have to go with the baseball suture because quite frankly, it's the only one I know how to do. The inversion one intrigues me. I've never seen it done. I'm still trying to figure it out in my head how it quite works. Someday I'll get there. But yeah, just the simple baseball suture and the fact that I'm left-handed and everybody who's teaching me is right-handed. So I do everything backwards to begin with. So just trying to figure that part out. I like the baseball suture. That's my go-to.
Well, you're all wrong. It's the softball suture because I played softball in college. So I'm just going to go ahead and correct you there. It is a softball suture. No, I like the softball stitch, baseball stitch. I like it because it's got the control. You can keep things from leaking, moving. I also had a similar, so I'm ambidextrous from my softball days, so I can stitch right, stitch left, right, left, bat. I can do all of that stuff. So I really annoy my preceptor because I will just, go back and forth. She's like, stop it. But the first time I did a softball stitch, it looked like a softball, not nearly enough ratcheting over to, pull the skin overhead to redo that one. But when we ever do anything that's, clavicular or, radial, things like that, I'm a sewer, so I can do worm inversion. I can do probably a few more. And my boss let me kind of do all of those. And she's like, those are really nice. So if I'm going to go ahead and say anything that I've got an A+ on, suturing is kind of my jam. But I will say, for speed and effectiveness and just overall appearance, I enjoy the softball stitch. However, I will do a worm every once in a while, especially on some of my little old emaciated, not a lot of movement there, not a lot of space. And I'll do that on the top and then maybe do a little bit of a glue closure to finalize it out. So then you almost can't see where it was at. So back at me again. So how do corticosteroids affect embalming and what is the best way to deal with them? So I'll let someone else go first just because I am immunocompromised. So I actually take corticosteroids. So I know quite a bit about this and I feel like I've talked enough. I can't hear you. Can anybody else still hear me?
I can.
Okay. So, well, because I take them, I know quite a bit about what that's going to do to me and what that can handle. So in an effort to not take up a ton of time on that, I will default back to Brandy and let her talk, or Amber, and then I will jam in if you guys are okay.
I can go, that's fine. So I actually had to do a little bit of quick research, well, thorough, but quick, because I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I was drawing a massive blank on it, preparing. But from my understanding, it's basically like it decreases the permeability of the cell membrane and blocks any liquids from like entering the cell. So that can cause for like issues for embalming. So like it can cause like dehydration and obviously like any fluids or solutions like entering the body. So like that does become an issue, obviously. But yeah, I guess, and then for treatment from what I was reading was just using a surfactant to try to get that going and help their situation, and using a strong solution. So that's what I know about it.
To be redundant, yeah, it's more of a saturation distribution issue. Though I agree with everything you said, you know, a stronger solution, surfactant. I would also say throw in a dye so that you can see where it is, you know, where it's being distributed, if you would need to have to do hypo or injection in a certain area. That's all I have extra.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know if I've ever worked with a case where like I even knew if this was a part of that person's life or not, you know, without looking at their medical records. I wouldn't know, you know. So, and then the other side is I don't know if my funeral home has ever used, like, to my knowledge, used surfactants or pre-injections in general. We have a very, very basic standard of embalming that we try to follow as best as we can, with like some variables, of course, as no case is identical. So I didn't know anything about this, kind of like what you were saying, Amber, like it's very new to me. And just knowing it helps to have more information, but also like a wide range of chemicals. Like that's something that my funeral home just has never done. I guess it's like kind of like the as it's always been type of issue. So yeah, I'd be happy to learn from someone like you, Kelsey, who has like a way wider range of knowledge, you know.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to give a whole lot of information on the back end of this, but what I can tell you, similar to like with the diabetic, where you're looking for, you know, some of those outward signs, like you can see gum disease, you can see things like that. People who are on a corticosteroid, a lot of times it's an inflammatory disease. I mean, the whole point of it is to keep the inflammation down. That's why you can't get things to permeate, because it's literally, they're trying to protect the cells and just be like, no more liquid, no more inflammation, no more, like none of that jazz. So I have Crohn's disease, and then I have rheumatoid arthritis. So things that you can look for. So I played softball in college. So my face is still very thin, and my arms are still very thin, and my legs are still very thin. However, I'm in active like breakout right now. So I'm on steroids and I'm on other stuff. So I weigh about 113 pounds more than I normally do. And so some of the outward signs that you can see is that the person looks unbalanced. A lot of it's going to be in the trunk. It's going to be from about here to, you know, down to their, you know, pubic, you know, symphysis. It's going to be right in there. It's in that area. A lot of times, you're not going to see a whole lot else with it. It's difficult unless someone tells you beyond that. I mean, someone who is not actively in treatment or is in remission, a lot of times you're going to see almost an emaciation case. So then you're going to be treating it the same way anyways, because you're going to be trying to pump more fluids in. But as you're in remission and as you go through things, you're not able to process the food the same way. So then people get real small real fast, and they almost look, you get the sunken eyes, you get the things. So you kind of see both ends of it. So I don't know that that's ever going to help you in the prep room. I don't know that that's ever going to do anything for you, but you got to think I kind of look like an apple with sticks. Like I have real thin arms and I have real thin legs, and then my face is still pretty good right here. It's getting a little much, but like from here to here, I'm, you know, I look like an apple. It's weird. So it's kind of goes back to those body shapes. So, but yeah, from what you said, some kind of a surfactant, something that's going to be really strong, going with a medicine, strong, you know, medicine 35, you know, something that's going to be a real, and then even adding in a kicker, just to, you know, good measure.
No, that's really
So-
that's good information. Yeah, because I was just like, oh, when I was looking at stuff, I was like, how do we like during the pre-embalming analysis, and I couldn't really find the information, just maybe blind, but I know that's good. I'm gonna use that as well.
So, our last one, what has been your most interesting case? I can start because mine's not that interesting, but it was interesting at the point in time. So this happened over Christmas, and well, Christmas time, I should say. And the reason why it was interesting was I'd been made aware that this individual was going into the hospital. I actually had worked with the family in my previous life as a banker, so I knew them really pretty well. I knew he wasn't doing well, and this hospital is about 40 minutes away from us because that's the closest hospital facility. You're either going to Blue Earth or you're going to Albert Lee, and if you get to Albert Lee, then you're going to Rochester. Either that or you're going to Mankato. Like, there really isn't anything terribly close to us. And this individual passed away, and it's not necessarily how or why he passed away. What happened was all the external things that happened afterwards. So they shut down I-90 because of a snowstorm. We can't travel. We talked to the sheriff. He knew that we needed to go. He knew that we had a decedent waiting for us in Blue Earth, and he said, I can't possibly send you out. You know, we're looking at 2 to 3 feet of snow. As soon as everything's cleared and as soon as things are going, we'll give you an escort and we'll get you over there. So United Hospital District is not part of Mayo, so they do not have a morgue. There's no cooler, there's no freezer, there's no refrigeration on site. So we already figured we were going to be dealing with a delayed case. We already knew that we were going to be dealing with a non-refrigerated case. We did not factor in the fact that for some reason, the person that was in the emergency department thought that it was a really good idea to wrap him very tightly in a couple of different sheets, place a plastic sheet over him, and he was placed into a room with zero circulation of air. So it was about 7 degrees warmer than what it should have been in the rest of the hospital. To say that the skin slough and the sores and the discoloration, I mean, we walked into the room and just, you knew just from the decomp smell, we knew from what we just saw even in the face, just the coloration, it was like, oh no. So the reason why it was interesting was because it didn't necessarily pose a hard case as far as arterial embalming went, but it was everything else. It was all of the large sores. I mean, they were the skin sloughing and the coloration of his face, and his lips were this weird, like hot pink color. And it was just interesting to call on my preceptors, all of her 26 years of knowledge, and then all of my, I'm good with colors. And so just like getting the yellows and getting the, the other side of the color, wheel, getting the greens out, trying to like balance things out. And the family still gave us, we send out our reviews later, but I mean, there was Syngel and there was drying and there was surface packing and there was draining this and draining that. And there was a Unionol. And I mean, it was, if you can think of something, I mean, it was almost like a found body. I mean, it was almost to that point where it was like, gee, thanks. But I will say that the perseverance and having the conversation with my preceptor up front that the family really wanted to have an open casket. They were certain that it was going to have to be closed, but that was one of those you're my hero stories where by the time we got done doing all of the, hypodermic and retreating areas and doing surface packs and getting everything done, it was an open casket. He looked like himself aside from the lips, which did everything we could and changed the color, but man, it looked good.
Okay. I guess with mine, it wasn't, I'm still pretty new to embalming. I'm first generation, don't know, black sheep of the family kind of thing. So I'm still really new at it and have not seen a lot of cases. But the one recently I saw that I thought was interesting, I saw this gentleman had it was not diffusing properly. The distribution when we were pushing the arterial solution just was not going the best. So my preceptor was like, well, he opened up his supraclavicular, opened that, made that suture and was like looking for the artery. And he's like, this is like really hard. So I felt it and I'm like, that's not, what I'm used to, like in the short cases I've seen. So then we were like, okay, well, let's see how, he drains and we'll go from there. And we were looking at it and we're watching him like a hawk and it just was not diffusing properly through his, into his legs and his left arm, I believe, or right arm, excuse me. And so then he's like, well, let's just open up the anterior tibials. That was interesting because I haven't seen that before. But then his arteries in the anterior tibials were just as hard and they were like super thin, like super poor. And I was just like this. And so anyway, I was like, that's an interesting feel. I guess I know what they look like now. I mean, I'd never seen them open before. And then when he was, we were trying to tie it off and it ended up, because it was so tight and short and so hard, it ended up snapping. So I got to figure out how to tie that off correctly on this little tiny little artery that's very that was very didn't want to be messed with, basically. So I thought that was an interesting case of mine recently, but that's all I got.
Yeah, for mine, it's not interesting because of what happened for the embalming. But like the third embalming that I did for education, for DMAC, was actually my grandfather. And I think like just having that opportunity made me say, this is why this is important, because it gave me the opportunity to say, I want to serve every family the way that I got to serve my grandfather and my family. And just knowing that embalming takes plays a huge part in that, and making the opportunity for people to say goodbye to their loved one in a very natural and humane way, so I was super thankful for that. And of course there's like interesting cases where the arteries are clogged and you don't get drainage, but it was having the opportunity to be with my grandfather through that just gave me the compassion and sympathy to say, okay, I want to treat everyone like I got to treat my grandfather, with the utmost respect and making them look as best as they can, so simple, but.
So my interesting case was a post-autopsy case. Embalming was going great right till we got to the right carotid artery, which was sad because it was big and it was beautiful and it was right there and it slapped you in the face. And as soon as we tried shooting it up, the tech had just crapped it out and slashed it. And we had hemostats and we ran out of fingers. We ran out of hemostats. It was still leaking everywhere. We were getting absolutely no distribution. And one of the lead funeral directors in there with us goes, I heard once about a guy who embalmed down the circle of Willis. We had nothing else to do. We're like, let's try it. And by God, it actually worked. We clamped way up as far as we could on the carotid and we ended up shooting down the circle of Willis and it got the job done. So that's my interesting case.
Well, it seems like we've had some very memorable ones and it has helped us, I think will help us in the long run, So I think that's pretty cool.
So the last item is a discussion about the organ and tissue donation advances. I think we can keep this pretty short and pretty sweet. I haven't done a whole lot with organ and tissue donation cases. I've done one long bone. But I think what was most interesting about this article was talking about the collaboration. And I think that was a piece for me, even in the very beginning, where I don't know how many of you actually took your, so I had I have a master's degree in finances. I was a bank president for 20 years, and then I turned around and decided to do something else. And so I had to go and take anatomy and physiology. So I took that from DMAC. And one of the most valuable things for me was watching the autopsies that I got to go down and see, because then I got to see that end of it and why they cut that way and why they did it this way and what's it going to look like when I get it. And if you haven't had the opportunity to do that, finding somewhere that you can, because it was a whole nother experience to say, well, we used to do it this way, but we know that that makes it difficult for you, so we do it this way. And having them have that open conversation of, you know, why do we cut the head then with a notch? Well, we do it that way because then it's easier for you guys, because you can, you know, go here, you can, you know, getting a normal semblance of a look. And even though the case that I've gotten back, usually we end up having one of our trade embalmers do them just because of the time, because it's a 6-hour round trip for us. We have someone else do them for us, but learning the pieces as to why things are done that way and knowing that there's places that are open to communication about it. That's one of the big things I took away from it. I will pass it to someone else for the last 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
I can talk about it. I think, yeah, I feel like the communication between the individuals who deal with the organ donation and tissue donation and the embalmers, I thought that was really interesting. And I never imagined those, well, I guess kind of obvious now, but until this class, I never really envisioned them like working together. And I also thought it was really interesting how they offered for the author to come out and to basically witness like the procurement of getting those tissues. And I thought that was really interesting because I know that, I mean, through the whole article, he was very informative about it. So I knew that experience and the way he wrote it was very impactful for him. And it's really cool that that experience helped him, but since he wrote about it, it's helped us reading it, and it's helped other like students read it, and basically what to do in certain situations with tissues and organ donations, and making sure that they are perfectly embalmed and they are, you know, they will last a while. So I think that's really cool for it.
With my medical background, I work in surgery currently, and I've seen it. I've seen them go in, I've seen the procurement, and I've seen everything that goes into it. And I just think it's an absolutely amazing anatomical gift that this person's family is willing to do. Because I mean, if you think about what they're really doing in there, I mean, yeah, you don't want to think about that. So for me, doing the embalming and the aftercare, yeah, it's a lot of extra work, but I think it's worth it. And I'm going to do everything I can for that family, just as a way to say thank you for everybody that they've helped along the lines by signing that piece of paper.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just simply appreciated just the author explaining like the process that they went through in the embalming and the treatments that they decided to do. And just like understanding that, like coming from my perspective, we have a very limited way that we do embalmings, but knowing that you can mix chemicals and make this like super gel that he calls it in the article, just to really make their family member as presentable as possible without issues, and make it as meaningful as possible. No odors, no issues. Yeah, so just thankful for that. And that article was really helpful.
And then I think that's really the end of our podcast, guys, because we were running out of time. So I think we're just going to give ourselves a round of applause and get this submitted, guys. All right. Have a good night then, all right? All right. Bye.
Bye.